what is a sopranino and how is it different than the other saxophones?
Okay, so sopranino saxophone is an instrument that is in the key of E flat. It is in one octave higher than the alto saxophone, which is what you have here. And it is an instrument that is very rarely used. It was originally part of the Adolph sax patent in 1846, but it didn't really make its way into use until the late 19th century. You didn't really have any virtuosos in that time frame, so to come by a sopranino specialist was you're not going to find that, and so you only have a handful of pieces that you find this particular instrument in. So it's a very interesting beast on its own.
So, Edward, would you please play some of the sopranino for us?
Of course. All right.
Let's go.
Okay, so what I played in Rhapsody in Blue.
Awesome. Very nice. And you're right, it's very high in range.
It's almost trumpet-esque in how I have to approach it, because it's very brassy when you get below using the octave key on the horn, and it's really easy to sound almost toyish in nature because it's so small. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
We could talk about your relationship as a saxophonist to Gershwin, because I imagine that Gershwin's works must be kind of important to the saxophone canon, especially like orchestral things for saxophone are kind of hard to come by sometimes. So.
Playing a lot of Gershwin's music later on, I have a saxophone sextet that specializes. The Moanin' Frogs is what they're called, and we play a lot of early ragtime music, a lot of early jazz, some ragtime revival, 1970s, like William Bolcom and William Albright's music. And so Gershwin's music came through. We played his Rialto Ripples, and we also have a smaller subset of that group, which when we play as a quartet, we play another medley from Porgy and Bess, so Summertime and all of those very familiar and famous songs. I just know that for me personally, it's like my identity just really connected, and it's just fun. It's a very serious music in its own right, but there's a sense of innocence about it too, and so that's how I felt about the sopranino in itself, is that it is a novelty. And so much of the music during that time was saxophone. Saxophone was viewed as a novelty, it was a jazz instrument. You have all these advertisements, especially during the 1920s, which in saxophone history is called the saxophone craze era. And it's like, don't you know that? No one knows the sax craze era. Like, if you ask someone on the street, no one's going to know what you're talking about. So in the history
Roaring
books,
20s were really all about the sax.
It's really about sax craze, yes. They would pick up the saxophone, make extra money, and the advertisements were always saying, "You want to make an extra buck? Play the saxophone. Easy. You want to be." There's my favorites. You want to be a president one day? Play the saxophone. You want to get the ladies? Saxophone. It was a symbol. So I can demonstrate kind of what the general sax craze era shtick, I guess.
Yes, that would be. I think those sounds are highly entertaining.
Yeah. So what you find, Rudy Rudolph was known for. So slap tongue. You can create pitched sound slaps, and then if you bust out your mouth like that, you create this smack. That's what we call it, smack tonguing.
Yeah.
And then what you have, I said, the saxophone laughs, it cries. You got that? I mean, laughing and crying is all about the same. I mean,
I'm wondering if Rhapsody in Blue maybe has an important place in the saxophone's transition and acceptance into the concert hall.
That is very true, actually, because there's only a handful of orchestral works where the saxophone has been used since like 1870. But the very first use of saxophone that's important in our repertoire would be Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. That was 1922. And then 2 years later, you have Rhapsody in Blue. And then after that, you have 1928, you have An American in Paris. So right there, you have two pieces by George Gershwin. So it's like, in a lot of ways, we owe a lot to him, and including the saxophone within the orchestra.